We are the one, the light in the dark. One heart, one world, one spark. We are the one, together we rise. One dream, one voice, one sky.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Women Empowered Across the World. And this is our podcast. And I have the amazing Jackie Zaccoli here with me as a host, coming from Arizona, but she is global. Oh my goodness, she's everywhere. And guys, you really want to check out her Gen Network, Global Impact Network. It's an amazing platform and networking place and a collaboration place. And I'm Carol Witt, and I'm the founder and the director for YEA Global. And we are in 82 countries now, and I teach mindset. It's the biggest deal, and it is. And we have the pleasure of having our guest, Chella, and it's Diaz.
Yes.
And we are so excited to hear her story. I've heard just a little, and I cannot wait to hear more. So, Chella, please come join us and share your story and inspire all of us.
Ladies, it is such a pleasure to be here today. And I love what you're doing because sometimes we just never know when listening to somebody how that's going to change somebody's life. I know that that has happened to me in so many different times, so many different ways. So even before I began to share is ladies and whoever is listening to this, be open to receiving. Because just as a side note, as women, we tend to want to make sure that everybody's okay, but sometimes it is okay to receive. It is okay. And even before we get to the meet, one of my coaches had me do this because I'm speaking from experience. I was not a good receiver, right? I always wanted to be a little bit of a control freak. I wanted to do things for myself. And one of my coaches, this is an actual exercise she had me do, is go to the store, grocery store, and ask somebody to help me. Well, I'm going to give the punchline away. So I'm 5'2". So she said, you go to the grocery store and you're going to buy something that's at the top shelf and you're going to ask somebody to help you get it. Ladies, I got to tell you, I spent at least 30 minutes at the grocery store. Not because I couldn't find somebody that was tall enough to help me. No, because I was like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm going to have to. And I didn't even want to buy whatever it is, right? It just had to be something that was high enough. It was the act of practicing for asking for help. And that was, even now as I say this, walking back and forth to the grocery store, thank goodness it was my local grocery store. So they didn't think I was a weirdo, but that was my first. So I invite you to, whether it's having somebody reach for something at the top shelf, whether it's having somebody help you with whatever it is, I think that that's where we need to start, is asking for help. Because when we begin to help or asking for help, one, it helps them and it helps us in so many different ways. So that is that. I mean, I love that you guys are doing this for women, because again, you just never know how things are going to work out. My story, and I'm going to walk you in, every single one of my stories is going to have a lesson. So I want you to think about, okay, how can I apply this to me? That is like tip number 2, is like, when you start thinking about it, it's like, well, I've never done this, or I've never been there. Okay, but how can you take that lesson and apply it to you, right? That's that. So 8 years old, I was such a curious little child. And the reason I bring my 8-year-old self is because I currently doing what I dreamt about doing when I was 8 years old. 8 years old, my dad said that girls have to have long hair. Well, that didn't sit well for me. And I went around and I did chores. I earned money. And one day when my dad got home, my hair was shorter. And where my dad was like, oh my God, your dad's going to be furious. I can't believe it. I will also add that I am the firstborn. So we're not going to get into the psychology, the firstborn, the second, the middle child, the youngest, but I was the firstborn, and I was very curious. But my dad ended up not being mad. My dad said, well, obviously you're good about this, doing chores and making money. Maybe we need to get you a part-time job. Of course, what he said was, maybe you need to start contributing to the household. And then at 9 years old, he found out that I was good with money. So I would go to the farmer's market, and I knew how much money I needed based on what the items on my list were. Now, 9 years old, it wasn't complicated, right? It was just whatever fruits and vegetables happened to be available. But that's when I discovered that shopping, right? 9 years old. And I knew the vendors, they had the best quality at the lowest price, right? That is something that was just second nature to me. I just knew. And let me tell you, if it happened to be that they were having like an extra sale, like buy one, get one free or whatever, what I did with the additional money that I saved, I would treat myself to my favorite juice, which still is fresh carrot juice and orange juice, the combination of that. And so that was my treat. So very early on, if I found something that was on sale, I would just treat myself. And to me, which I still do to this day, going out and finding amazing sales is one of my favorite things to do, because then I get to do a lot more with whatever money I happen to have. And then I get to be. But that is, right, so 9 years old, I was good with money. Bought my first car when I was 17. And I had a part-time job, right? At 17, I was still going to school, so I had a part-time job. And we paid, back then we got paid weekly. So I would save 3 of my paychecks to go towards my car. And then I still was able to do other things with the other 2 paychecks. The people that I worked with were truly surprised that I was able to do that. They're like, how can you put away like the entire paychecks, right? I'm just taking the entire paycheck, went into the savings account. They were blown away. And that's when I started to find out that other people viewed money differently. For me, it just made sense. I want to buy a car. I want to be able to get there as quickly as possible. I'm going to put as much money in there as possible. So that was my first lesson, how other people view money. To me, if you have a goal, when you put away the money, how much do you need? And then later on, I purchased my very first home when I was 23, right? And a lot of people's like, yeah, but your parents helped you. Yeah, well, my dad is phenomenal with money. My mom was a housewife, and my dad was a baker, right? He baked. He had his own business on the side, but he baked, right? So yes, he was good with money, but I definitely did not get the money for my house from him. I did borrow. I did borrow for sure. We were short like $1,500. So I did borrow from him. But, to me, that's something that I am passionate about. And this is what I do today. I guide not only women entrepreneurs, but that younger generation to see money in a different way, right? To see that, it's okay to go out and to buy and to do all those things. But at the end of the day, what I say is that the big house and the fancy car and the jewelry and the whatever, that's not equal happiness. To me, happiness is, what are you going to do after that? So I do host financial literacy class, but I don't call it that. But just between us, that's what I teach. I teach financial literacy class. My favorite workshops is when I go in to the cooking classes, and we get to bake and we get talk about money at the same time. So we bake scones. So we have all the ingredients, we have the flour and the butter and the whatever going on. And I talk about, when you get a paycheck, you're going to have to, pay your insurance, maybe pay rent, pay your phone, buy groceries, right? Same thing. You can have all the ingredients, you can have the money. It's how are you going to allocate that money? So without them knowing, we're talking about, what if we add, 1 cup of salt instead of 1 cup of sugar. That would not be a good recipe to come out. But it gets them thinking about money in a different way. It gets them thinking about money in a friendly way, right? Because I'm not saying, and the first thing I say is, we're not going to talk about the B word. We're not going to use a budget, right? Because budget too, I found it feels restrictive to them. I said, what we're going to talk about today is how you can create a spending plan so that you're able to achieve whatever you desire. Which I also think is important, right? Because not everybody wants the same things. So how can we put it so that they're achieving, right? Some people, may not necessarily want to buy a car. I'm finding that more now, that because we have so many ways to get around, with all the things, kids don't want to necessarily buy a car. So it's whatever they want to do. For me, going back to my car, the freedom that it allowed me to have opened up new opportunities. Because when I had a car, I got to go to football games at other high schools. I got to go to concerts. I got to go and experience different cultures. So to me, the car was more than it was the freedom it provided me. Initially, the reason I wanted to buy my car is because we lived in an apartment and we used to have to walk to the laundromat. So my initial goal was like, I want to get a car so I don't have to walk to the laundromat. I wanted to drive to the laundromat. Right shortly thereafter, my dad bought a house and we had our own washer and dryer. But the initial goal was so I don't have to walk to the laundromat. That was the initial goal. But what it opened up was me to going out and experiencing, whether it was the football and the baseball and the concerts, right? It opened up a freedom that I had never had before, right? So sometimes, even though you may think, okay, the car's going to do one, but for me, it opened up. And that truly, ever since then, the people that I got to meet, the experiences, the adventures, the food, the music that I was introduced to me, it's opening up. And I invite each and every one of you to think, how is doing something differently? How can you go out and experience somebody else's culture, right? To me, food and music opens up so many different avenues. And I can probably get this in writing from both of my sons because that's something that they've been doing since they were very little. We got to go to different concerts and we got to experience different foods. They were very fortunate. We were all very fortunate. With my kids, I feel that I got to have my childhood and not do it over because there was nothing wrong with the first one, but I got to experience my childhood through their eyes. We lived in California, Culver City, and at the time, there were 27 different languages spoken at the households. So can you imagine when I put together the events and the potlucks, and for them to be around, to have play dates, or even just within the classroom, to be introduced to so many different cultures, to so many different languages, I bring it back to food. Because food and music, again, I go back because to me, that's the best way for us to experience somebody else. Whether we like it or not, that's not the point, but we got to do the experience. And that's why I am so grateful that my kids got to grow up in Culver City because we got the opportunity to be around so many other foods, cultures, and just even personalities, right? It's the best. It was truly the best place to grow up. And I feel that that's how I got to do my childhood. The adult version of my childhood because I was a volunteer. And one of the things that I did was do cooking classes because I feel that cooking, I always make cookies or scones. Scones are the easiest to me because when you get a child to start working with whatever dough, right? It's about putting the ingredients together, which is, to me, it's about life. But also not being so restricted with the recipe. It's about, you got to get the feel of whatever. Like I said, you got to get the feel of the dough. Because if you're in, for instance, cold weather versus hot weather, the ingredients can be the same, but because of the temperature, it's going to be different. So that's truly my youngest student so far has been 4 years old. And this is ladies. So I talked to two 6-year-olds, a boy and a girl. And I said the same thing to them, asked the same question. I asked him, do you want to bake with me? And the little girl said, 6 years old, I'm only 6. I can't do it.
Mm-hmm.
Tore my heart.
Mm-hmm.
The little boy, I said, would you like to bake? His answer was like, sure. Again, nothing, we're not, but it's about what if we start sharing and guiding our kids to think about, sure, especially our little girls, because this is one of the things that I've come across. And that was so, to me, again, who the parents and all of that. But if you come across a student, what if we just guide them to open up that window, right? Say, sure, why not? Give it a go. Even if you make a mistake, even if you make a mess, doesn't matter, right? Just that being curious. It doesn't have to be baking, doesn't have to be baking. It can be whatever it is, right? Maybe you want to go on the slide. Maybe you want to, whatever that it is for them. Maybe you want to go on a hike, whatever it is, but it's opening that new way of looking at things. Because when you begin to do that, it expands your mind and they're more open to doing that. When I go into the high schools and I host my financial literacy workshops, I always ask, right after I tell a few jokes and right after I give a few treats, because you gotta, let's face it, you gotta bribe them to talk to me. And I ask, what are some of the ways that you're giving back to your community? Every single time. So far, I've never gotten a different answer. But they always say, we don't have a job, we don't have any money. And that's when, to me, the biggest opportunity, because I said, giving back to your community is not always about money. Giving back to your community could be going to one of my favorite things, going to the library and reading, or hosting a workshop, or babysitting for somebody, or carrying somebody's grocery store, or whatever it is, right? There's so many ways for us to give back to the community. And normally I would leave them with one task. And I have had the response, because the teachers normally reply to me or we stay in touch after I do the workshops. And I invite them to go talk to a business owner in the neighborhood. I don't care what the business is. Is it your corner grocery store? Is it your gardener? Is it your pool guy? It doesn't. Is it your UPS guy, which is actually one of my favorite stories? Go talk to them and ask them, how did they get into this line of work? What do they like about it? And what are some of the challenges? Just those 3 questions, because to me, that's going to allow them to learn so much from that. And the story that I share is that, because I've been working from home for so many, even when I was in corporate, I worked from home. So the only people that I really saw on a weekly basis was the UPS guy, UPS, Federal Express, and the mailman. That's it, right? And I got too friendly with the UPS guy, and he was, yes, working for UPS, but he also owned a lot of property, which meant that he had access to handyman, repairman, the electrician, the construction, right? I never would have known that about him unless I had a conversation. Because you never know, right? You can just say, well, UPS guy, you can say gardener, you can say, my other favorite is a guy that owned a body shop. So once upon a time, many, many moons ago, I was a real estate underwriter and had the privilege of underwriting over 20,000 loans. I did the math. I'm good. I'm a numbers geek, so I did the math. Over 20,000 loans. And what I learned about that, and this is where this comes from, I underwrote a guy that was a doctor and one that owned a body shop. And this is the stories that I like to go into the classroom and say, I said, so you have a doctor and you have somebody that owns a body shop. Which one do you think has more money in the bank? Now, which one earns more? Which one has more liquid assets in the bank? Of course, everybody's going to think the doctor does. No, because the doctor does make a lot of money, right? Versus my auto guy. So the doctor was at a 500K. My auto mechanic was a 150. The doctor had a very expensive house. They had a very expensive car payments, and he had credit cards, not to mention student loans. My mechanic, auto shop guy, owned his property very small amount. He had no credit card debt. And of course, he didn't have a car payment because auto mechanic, see, he got his own car, right? So in the bank, my auto mechanic had over $250,000 in liquid assets. My doctor had none. And that was so valuable to me because they got to see, just because you have the title and you have the school, that does not mean, and you have a fancy house and you have the fancy car and you go out to dinner and you go to shopping and you do that, all of that. Just because you're able to do that, that does not mean you're necessarily stable. I would take the auto mechanic's life any day. And just bringing that to their attention to me was so valuable because they got to see the behind the scenes, right? It's so important. But also what they learn from that, right, is that they get to see the inside, and it gets them thinking about what life do they want to live.
Mhm.
Do they want to go out and get themselves into credit card debt? Or do they want to be like my auto shop guy who saved and saved and saved? And because he was able to do that, he's in a much better place. And to take it home for that, right? It's some of these students, I said, yeah, you can have the big life, nothing wrong with that if that's what you choose to do. But that also, the sacrifice would probably be you may need to take a job that you don't like
Mm.
because you need to make a certain amount of money in order for you to keep up that life. Where my auto shop guy loved what he did, which is why he got into it to begin with, but also because his monthly obligations were lower, he could take off whenever he wanted. He didn't have to work the long days. He didn't have to work necessarily on the weekends, right? So it's the lifestyle that you choose. Nothing wrong with it. Just know, right? To me, it's about if you chose to go with the house and the car, great. But know that with that comes, the working the longer hours, the having to take a job that you may or may not necessarily want
Mm.
because of what it offers.
Oh, wow. I love your story. And I love that you love working with young people. Oh my gosh, and expanding their minds. Ah, love, love, love what you shared today. Thank you so much for what you do out there. Thank you. Um, because I can tell you love what you do. And there are many out there that, just like you said, took a job to pay their bills, not necessarily that they loved what they did and honestly felt like they had to. And I don't do anything I feel like I have to do in my life. I choose powerfully for myself. And that's what you're talking about here. So thank you for sharing. Thank you so much. Wow. So, Jackie, you have your hand up. You have a question.
Beautiful stories. So
Oh,
insightful. So
mm,
insightful. They were so great. And yeah, it's cool. What I ask of you is what would you say to young people to get them inspired to actually save something? I mean, we could go on for days about the young people that don't even think about saving until it's too late, basically. So, what would you say to those young people? They're going to be all over the world in different cultures. And is there anything that you can say that might be kind of a antidote or at least something that would help them on that path?
Yeah, I would say whether you're making a part-time job, full-time job, whether you're only getting allowances, it doesn't matter. Keep track of how you're investing your money. Where is your money? Find your money leaks. And I could write a whole chapter on that. Find your money leaks, right? And this is truly, do it 1 week at a time. I'm an old-fashioned notebook and paper. You can do it on your phone. You can do it. I don't care, right? Doesn't matter. But where is your money going? Week by week, and do it for 4 weeks. This is so important because when you do this, you're not only going to find, right? Because how many of us go to the store like, oh, this looks good. Okay, maybe it's just me, but I'm getting better and better every day, but sales still get to me. Oh, it's such a great deal, even if it's not for me. So I'm getting better. I'm getting better. But tracking down, where is the money going, right? Did it go to the grocery store? Did it go to the restaurant? Whatever. For 1 week, do that. Again, doesn't matter where the money is coming from, but keep track of where the money is going. When you do that for 4 weeks, it's going to reveal one, when do you go out and shop? And especially my young adults, they tend to go out and shop, or they tend to go out or spend money on the Monday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. I don't know why, but that's what I've seen in the past. So when you know, let's take the Friday. Let's say the Friday is the day that you go out. I'm not saying don't go out, but now that you know, based on the 4-week assessment that you took, you know that Fridays seem to be the day that you go out and spend a little extra. What if instead of 4 Fridays, because I don't believe in you got to cut everything out because you're not taking away my carbs, right? You're not taking away my sugar either, right? But what instead of going, right? You're not taking my coffee, no.
That's right.
So what if, right? What if instead of going out those 4 Fridays, what if you just cut back and you only went out 3 Fridays? And then next thing you know, maybe what if you go back and start maybe 2 Fridays? But this is where it's going to get exciting and fun, and this is what I've seen happen over and over and over again, especially with my favorite Carlos, who was 17 years old. He did this, and so he wanted to buy a car, right? So when you do that, you cut back. You instead of 4 Fridays, now you're back to 2. 2 is good. That money that you would invest it or that you would have spent, you're going to take that money and you're going to put it into a possibility account. Now, this does not need to be, it can be in the bank, it can be in the credit union, but it also could be a little jar, a little box at the house, whatever that is, right? There's no restrictions here. But whatever money is going to go is going to be a possibility bucket or possibility envelope, whatever works for you. And then that possibility, you're going to write on the envelope, what is that purpose for that money? So with Carlos, my 17-year-old, he wanted to buy a car. He had just gotten his first part-time job. So one paycheck went into for him to save for the car. So you got to give that money a destination, right? Maybe it's a computer. Maybe it doesn't matter what it is. Give it a destination, because that's going to allow you to get, what's going to happen is when you begin to see that possibility account grow, it's going to make it a lot easier to say no to the shiny objects. It's to say no to those friends like, come on, it's only going to be this and it's only going to be lunch. Or it's only going to be, it's going to make it a lot easier because you're beginning to see that account grow. So you're being pulled into that savings pattern versus just going out every four Fridays out of the month. That's the magic formula, and it works every single time, and something I still use to this day.
Absolutely beautiful. Okay, I have a question for you. So I want to know, because I didn't hear inside of everything you shared, I didn't hear what do you offer? What kind of services do you offer out there for people to connect with you and learn more from you? What do you have out there already that we can really let people know how to reach out to you?
So two things. Definitely reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'm active there 5 days a week. And I do work with entrepreneurs, getting them to make more money. End of the day, I want every single one of us, entrepreneurs, to make more money. And, or you can also check out my book, Money Bootcamp, available on Amazon. Everything that I share with you today, the keeping track of your money for 1 week, everything is there. I also have a chapter for you ladies, especially you. And a man is not a plan. I'm not saying anything else, but right, we gotta really, a man is not a plan, ladies. But yeah, check out the book, Money Bootcamp, Chella Diaz, and what I just shared with you, the tips, all of that is in the book. And the book was tested by hundreds of students from my workshops. They read the chapters before I published the book. So it's been tested and it has worked. It was only after I saw success with them that we published the book. So Amazon or LinkedIn.
Beautiful.
Connect
So
with me.
Chella, please put your information in the chat so I can put it in the show notes when I upload this into YouTube so people can reach out to you, can get your book, can, be connected to you in LinkedIn and other things. So please put your information in the chat so I can do that, okay?
I love them. Yes.
What another amazing episode. Thank you, Jackie. Thank you. So guys, if you love these episodes, please subscribe to our channel, make comments, and please, your network of people are not mine. So please share this out to your network. Let's make this go viral. Young people need to hear this. Really and truly, they need to hear this. And there are so many of them coming up right now that need this information. So please share it. That's what this platform's all about. Oh, and guys, if you, as a woman, have a voice and a story, and you do, and you bring value to this platform, so please reach out to one of us on LinkedIn and be a guest on our podcast and share your story and inspire many. Guys, we all deserve to thrive. Let's do it together. This is sisterhood. Let's do it together. Bye, everyone.
There's no divide.